Hi guys, this is Bill from Spencer1984.com with another update to the Stranger Things WSQK, the Squawk 77 GMC van. And we're going to be starting off by addressing an issue that I ran into. It's a little issue, easily fixed, but it is still an issue. So, we've got our pad-printed white wall tires, we've got our steely rims, and when we put them together, looks okay straight on, but it's not seated properly. And that's because of the ridge on the inside of the tire. You can see I've got the rim fully seated in there. It's not going to go any further. But the problem is that ridge is offset. You see it's a narrower shoulder on this side than it is on the back. And if I put the rim in on the black wall side, it sits properly. So basically, they've got the white wall printed on the wrong side of the tire. But like I said, it's a relatively easy fix. All we're going to do is we're going to take our trusty hobby knife here and just going to run that right along the inside edge of the tire. This is a really awkward angle that I'm working at around the camera, so have to forgive me for that. But just seat the knife on the inner edge of the tire and kind of rotate that around. And there we go. And so now that that's out of there, I can bring the wheel back, put it in from the outside, and it no longer runs into that shoulder. And it's seated properly now. I don't know if this is going to be a universal problem with all the kits, or just I got a bad one, but there we go. I also added my flat spot to the tire, so that'll go on the bottom, and just get that mounted here. There we go. Right. So now, I don't mind the sidewalls being clean. This is supposed to be sort of a show vehicle, but I do want to muddy up the treads on them a little bit. So what I'm going to do, what I did with the other three tires already, is I'm just going to take a little bit of the Tamiya Weathering Effects mud and I'm just going to go around the tread here. Just like that. Gives it a little bit of wear, but not a whole lot. Doesn't look really worn out, just, like I said, a used tire. So I'm going to go most of the way around. I am going to stop before I get to the flat spot. So that's going to be on the ground so you won't see it, and also gives it a little bit of a darker shadow there at the bottom. And that's what I kind of did with the rest of the chassis. Didn't want to make it look really beat up, but I did want to make it look used. So I went through, did a whole lot of dry brushing with a few different colors. And I gave it some grays, some browns. The engine is a light blue, which isn't exactly GM corporate blue, but it's close enough for this. Darker blue for the rear shocks, and some silver for the fuel tank. I also did a little bit of surface rust here and there. And yeah, the rear shocks, axle, and the drive shaft are still very clearly all molded as part of the same thing, but I think painted up it doesn't look too bad. Certainly not straight on. One other thing that I ran into, don't know if you can really see it. Yeah, you see that little gap between the wheel and the frame? There's a little bit of a shoulder in there, so the wheel retainer only goes on so far, and that means that the inner wheel can't fully seat and will wobble a little bit. So what I did was I just glued all four wheels on permanently. And it sits fine, all four corners touch the table, and it's only an issue with the front axle. The rear axle, the wheels sit on just fine. I also did a little bit of work on the interior. I got the back area painted with Tester's flat red, and then up front it's a mix of a couple of different grays and blacks to kind of give it a used carpet look. And I did black just for the edges where the door's going to open. I did modify the steering column. This was just personal preference, not a problem with the kit. But the shift lever was cast so that it was straight across from the directional. And since the van's supposed to be in park, that didn't look right to me, so I just cut it off and rotated it up the side of the steering column. Other than that, everything is straight out of the box. I did the dashboard, the seats, and the doghouse in a semi-gloss black. I detailed a few of the dashboard components with silver, and then the gauges and the bumper sticker on the other side are all the decals out of the kit. And it looks pretty good. I mean, you can read Halley's Comet is coming, so they're pretty sharp. Steering wheel and the other chrome parts are done with chrome paint. Those were not chrome plated in the kit. Now this is cast so that the inner fenders are part of the interior, and this right here is my trick for non-essential areas that just have to be black. Now, for things like this especially, I really like using the inexpensive craft paints from Apple Barrel and Craft Smart, but they don't always cover on the first time. So normally you just put a second or third coat on, but like I said, I'm going to be a little bit lazy here, and what I did was I hit it with a magic marker first, and then I can just go over top of it with the paint, and you can see the spot where I didn't put the marker, there's still blue showing through, and the rest of it is just straight up black. So I'm going to feather this in to the rest of the area that I painted. And once that's dry, that'll completely disappear, but it was only one half coat of paint. And as far as non-critical areas, you can see some of that shows through, and I'm going to go back through and weather it, but really there's not a whole lot of those inner fenders that show. So for an area like that, I think that little trick works out just fine. And then the last thing to talk about is I started doing some prep work on the body. In the review video, somebody had pointed out I didn't mention there is a sink mark in the passenger door. Fixed that with a little bit of super glue. And then I went through and put the doors in just to see how everything fit. And generally pretty good. The side door actually does slide open like it's supposed to. That's as far open as it gets. You don't get the whole opening. But that sits in there pretty well. The rear doors actually connect to the interior panels, so these aren't glued in. They're just being held in place so that I can check the hinge fit. And I'm glad that I did, because if you look, the right door has a little bit of a gap there, and I don't on the left, and that's because the left door wasn't going to seat properly without a little work. Like I said, interior panels are not glued in. But if you look at the door, you can see I've got the hinges cut a little bit short on this side, so there's a gap there. And that's because when I put them together out of the box, the left door was too far away from the side of the van. So it ran into the right door. The right door is fine. It does have that little bit of gap from the outside, so visually it doesn't look quite right, but it fits the back of the van. I mean, you saw the doors closed there. So this one is okay, but the left one did not fit the way that I wanted it to. So I just trimmed those hinges a little bit short and glued that together. This side, like I said, it's fine. There's a little bit of a gap, but there's also enough wiggle room that it closes itself up just fine. And they work. I mean, doors open and close like they're supposed to. So if you get one of these, just make sure to do some test fitting before you glue things together. So far, everything does go together. It just needs a little massaging. Now, the side door, I find it easier to put in from the inside, top first, and then just pop this bottom out. And that seems to work out just fine. And doing these test fits also lets me know that when it's time for paint, I'm going to have to be careful of some surfaces. Speaking of paint, this is what I'll be using. Tamiya TS54 Light Metallic Blue. looks like it's going to be a pretty good match to the prop vehicle. Now, my understanding is that the van is supposed to be GMC Bright Blue Poly 2893, and I think that the TS54 is going to be close enough. I mean, it is a custom painted van, so if I'm off a shade or two, I can say that the base color was just part of when it was repainted as the Squawk van. So, that should do it for this week. Got the chassis pretty much done, made some strides with the interior, got a fair bit of prep work done on the body. So I am going to finish doing the prep work on the body and get that into some paint. I got to work on the equipment for the back of the van, get that all pulled together and painted, and I will have another update on this next week. So you can check back then, and thanks for watching.